I didn't plan this moment. I didn't rehearse these words in front of a mirror, because some truths don't arrive with noise, they arrive with clarity. I used to think love was something you find, something accidental, something that just happens to you. But then you walked into my life, and the future stopped being abstract. It became specific. It got your face, your voice, your presence. Calling you my future wife isn't a fantasy. It isn't hope dressed up as courage. It's a realization. This changed everything. He didn't realize how unfinished my life felt until it stopped feeling that way. Not suddenly, not like a switch being flipped, more like a slow, undeniable alignment. Days began to make sense in ways they never had before. Silence stopped feeling empty. Waiting stopped feeling heavy. I used to think the future was a place I would eventually arrive at, something abstract, something shaped by work, by survival, by time passing, whether I was ready or not. But now when I think about the future, it doesn't stretch endlessly forward. It stands right here. It looks at me. It listens. It changes the way I breathe. You didn't come into my life to disrupt it. You came into my life to reveal it, to show me that all the wandering wasn't wasted, that every wrong turn had been teaching me how to recognize you. I didn't fall in love the way people talk about falling, like losing balance, like chaos. This was steadier than that. This was clarity. This was the calm realization that I no longer had to imagine who I was walking toward. I was already there. Before you, love felt like motion without direction, feelings without grounding, moments that burned bright and disappeared just as quickly. I thought that intensity was proof. I thought uncertainty meant passion. But standing here now, loving you, I understand that real love doesn't shake the ground beneath your feet. It gives you solid ground to stand on. It doesn't demand that you become someone else. It allows you to finally be still. Calling you my future wife didn't come from dreaming. It came from knowing. Knowing the way you know the weight of something you carry every day. Knowing without needing witnesses. Knowing without needing applause. The words didn't feel big when I first thought them. They felt accurate, like naming something that had already claimed its place in my life. You changed the way I see time. The past no longer pulls at me with regret. The future no longer scares me with its uncertainty. Because whatever comes next doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest. It just has to include you. I don't need guarantees. I don't need grand promises spoken out loud. I need mornings that begin quietly, conversations that don't rush, shared silence that feels safe. I need the ordinary moments because with you they are no longer ordinary. I've learned that love isn't proven in dramatic gestures. It's proven in patience, in staying when it would be easier to retreat, in listening when silence would be more comfortable, in choosing the same person again and again, not because you have to, but because nothing else makes sense. You didn't just change my plans, you changed my priorities. You changed the way I define strength. You changed what home means to me. I used to think commitment was about limitation, about doors closing, about freedom being reduced. But loving you has shown me the opposite. This is expansion. This is freedom with purpose. This is knowing exactly where I belong and walking toward it without hesitation. You didn't take my independence, you gave it direction. When I say future wife, I'm not talking about a ceremony or a title. I'm talking about partnership, about choosing to face the world side by side, about growing, failing, learning, and still reaching for the same hand at the end of the day. I'm talking about trust built slowly, deliberately, and without fear. I'm talking about a future that no longer feels like something I have to chase because it's already walking beside me. This changed everything. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. Love didn't arrive like a storm. There were no warning signs, no chaos, no moment where everything broke apart so something new could rush in. It arrived quietly, the way truth usually does. It showed up in consistency, in the way you stayed the same person whether the day was heavy or light, in the way your presence didn't demand attention but somehow held it. I didn't feel swept away. I felt grounded. For a long time I believed love had to be loud to be real, that it had to hurt a little, that uncertainty was part of the deal, that if my heart wasn't racing, something must be missing. I confused anxiety with excitement. I mistook unpredictability for depth. I thought love was proven through sacrifice that left you smaller than before. But standing here now, loving you, I understand how wrong I was. Real love doesn't take pieces from you. It gives you room. This isn't about grand promises spoken under perfect lighting. It's about the quiet decision to show up even when nothing dramatic is happening. Especially then, it's choosing to stay engaged when the moment doesn't feel cinematic. It's understanding that commitment isn't forged in peaks, but in the steady middle, in the repetition, in the ordinary days that don't ask for applause. Love, real love, is built there. I didn't decide to love you because it was easy. I decided because it was clear. Because when I imagined the hard days, you were still there. Because when I thought about who I wanted beside me when things didn't go as planned, your presence felt right, not perfect. Right. You didn't promise me a life without struggle. You offered me honesty. You offered me partnership. You offered me the truth of who you are, without performance. Every day, loving you feels like choosing alignment over impulse. It's not about being consumed. It's about being intentio. I don't wake up wondering where I stand. I don't question your intentions or mine. There's a calm in that, a strength, a kind of courage that doesn't need to announce itself. This love doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It trusts time instead of fighting it. I've learned that romance isn't about intensity that fades. It's about steadiness that lasts. It's about learning someone's rhythms, knowing when to speak and when to listen, understanding that silence isn't absence and space isn't distance. With you, I don't feel the need to perform affection. I don't feel pressure to prove anything. Love flows naturally when it's rooted in respect. This isn't the kind of love that demands perfection. It allows mistakes. It allows growth. It allows pauses. It understands that people evolve and chooses to evolve together rather than pulling apart. I don't love an idea of you. I love the real you. The parts that are still figuring things out, the parts that are strong, the parts that are tired. All of it belongs here. When I say this love is a decision, I don't mean it's forced. I mean it's deliberate. It's waking up and choosing kindness even when it would be easier to withdraw. It's choosing patience when frustration shows up. It's choosing understanding instead of assumptions. These choices don't make the love smaller, they make it deeper. They make it durable. You didn't sweep me off my feet. You stood beside me. And somehow that changed everything. Because standing beside someone means seeing them clearly. It means witnessing their days, not just their highlights. It means loving them when nothing is being celebrated. That's where trust is built. That's where safety grows. I don't need fireworks to feel sure. I need presence. I need honesty. I need the kind of love that doesn't disappear when things get quiet. And with you, quiet feels full. It feels intentional. It feels like something worth protecting. This love doesn't ask me to lose myself. It invites me to bring my whole self, my doubts, my hopes, my unfinished edges, and it meets them without judgment. That kind of acceptance doesn't come from passion alone. It comes from choice, from deciding that this connection matters enough to nurture, enough to defend, enough to commit to, even when no one else is watching. Every day I choose you not because I'm afraid of being alone, but because life makes more sense with you in it. Because your presence doesn't complicate my world. It clarifies it. Because loving you feels less like falling and more like standing firmly in who I am, knowing exactly why I'm here, knowing exactly who I'm walking forward with, knowing that this quiet decision made again and again is the strongest promise I could ever make, even when the future is unwritten, even when the path isn't clear, even when all I have is this moment and the certainty that choosing you today is enough, and choosing you tomorrow will be too, and the day after that, and all the days that don't ask off or proof. Only presence, only intention, only the steady courage to stay, to listen, to build, to continue, to believe in a love that doesn't shout but endures. Fear used to arrive before everything else, before decisions, before hope, before I let myself imagine anything lasting. It was always there, quiet but convincing, reminding me that nothing stays, that people change, that time eventually takes everything it gives. I learned to move quickly because I didn't trust what lingered. I learned to keep parts of myself guarded because vulnerability felt like an open door to loss. I thought that was wisdom. I thought that was strength. Then you showed up, and fear didn't disappear, but it changed shape. It stopped being in control. It stopped narrating every possibility. It learned to sit in the background while something steadier took its place. Your presence didn't argue with my doubts. It didn't try to overpower them. It simply existed consistently enough that the doubts lost their urgency. You didn't promise me safety. You embodied it. Time feels different now. Not faster, not slower, just clearer. Moments don't rush past me the way they used to. I notice things. I listen longer. I stay. Before you, I was always preparing for what came next, bracing myself, calculating outcomes, imagining exits. Now I find myself rooted in where I am. Not because I'm trapped, but because I want to be here. Because this moment feels complete. You didn't erase my past. You reframed it. Experiences that once felt like mistakes now look like preparation, like lessons that taught me how to recognize what was real when it finally arrived. The pain didn't vanish, but it softened. It stopped defining me. It stopped demanding explanations. With you, I don't feel the need to justify who I've been. I feel understood for who I am becoming. I used to believe love meant losing control, that it meant surrendering, certainty, and accepting chaos. But loving you hasn't taken control away from me. It has returned it. I'm no longer reacting to fear. I'm responding to truth. I don't feel pushed by emotion or pulled by insecurity. I feel guided by clarity, by intention, by a quiet confidence that doesn't need reassurance every 5 minutes to survive. Your presence changes the way uncertainty feels. The future is still unknown. Nothing magical happened to erase risk. But the unknown no longer feels hostile. It feels open. It feels like something we step into together instead of something I face alone. I don't need to see every step ahead. I just need to know who's beside me when the path bends. And with you, that knowledge is solid. I've noticed how my reactions have softened, how I pause before assuming the worst, how I listen instead of defending, how I let moments breathe instead of trying to control them. This isn't self-improvement driven by fear of losing you. It's growth inspired by feeling secure enough to evolve. You didn't demand change. You created space for it. Time used to feel like pressure, like a countdown, like something always running out. Now it feels like a companion, something that builds instead of threatens. Days don't feel like something I have to survive. They feel like something I get to inhabit, even the difficult ones. Especially the difficult ones, because difficulty shared doesn't isolate. It connects. You didn't rush me toward the future. You invited me into it gently, without deadlines, without ultimatums, without forcing certainty before it was ready. That patience changed me. It taught me that commitment doesn't have to be loud to be real. That depth doesn't require drama. That love can be strong without being sharp. I don't fear becoming dependent because this connection doesn't weaken me. It reinforces me. It doesn't replace my sense of self. It supports it. I stand more firmly in who I am because I'm not constantly questioning where I stand with you. That stability frees energy, it frees attention. It frees parts of me that used to be tied up in worry. When things are quiet between us, I don't fill the space with doubt. I let it exist. I trust it. Silence no longer feels like absence. It feels like comfort, like understanding without explanation. That kind of trust doesn't come from words. It comes from time spent consistently choosing honesty, choosing presence, choosing to stay engaged even when nothing demands it. You change the way I experience time by changing the way I experience myself within it. I'm no longer bracing for loss before joy arrives. I let joy be what it is. I don't rush past it. I don't hold it too tightly either. I let it exist, not to rally. That balance feels new. It feels earned. Fear still visits sometimes. It reminds me that nothing is guaranteed. But it no longer controls the narrative. It no longer defines the outcome. Because now, when fear speaks, it has to speak over the quiet truth that loving you has already taught me how to be present, how to trust what is real instead of what is imagined, how to stand in uncertainty without collapsing, how to move forward without needing constant proof, how to believe that, even if time changes things, what we are building is strong enough to meet that change, to adapt, to continue, to exist beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond the urgency that once ruled me. Because now I understand that time isn't something to outrun, it's something to walk through with intention, with steadiness, with someone who makes each step feel grounded, even when the destination isn't visible. Yet choosing you isn't something I did once. It isn't a moment I can point to and say, That was it. That was when everything locked into place forever. It's something that happens daily, quietly, without ceremony. It happens in small decisions, in pauses, in the way I orient myself toward you even when nothing is being asked. Love, for me, has become an act of consistency rather than intensity. I don't wake up each day overwhelmed by emotion. I wake up with certainty, a calm understanding of who matters, of where my loyalty rests, of what I am building. That kind of knowing doesn't shout, it settles. It stays. It doesn't demand to be proven because it proves itself through repetition, through showing up, through staying present when the novelty has faded and the work begins. There are days when love feels effortless, when conversation flows, when laughter fills the space between us and everything feels aligned. And there are days when it doesn't, days when energy is low, when patience is tested, when misunderstandings hover just beneath the surface. Choosing you means not treating those days as threats. It means recognizing them as part of the rhythm, as moments that don't weaken what we have but give it texture. I don't choose you because you complete me. I choose you because you walk beside me while I remain whole. Because this connection doesn't erase my individuality, it respects it. It allows both of us to exist fully without competition, without fear, without the need to dominate or disappear. That balance isn't accidental. It's maintained through awareness, through effort that doesn't feel like sacrifice, because it aligns with who I want to be. Loving you has taught me that permanence isn't created by promises alone. It's created by behavior, by reliability, by the way we respond when things are uncomfortable, by the willingness to listen instead of withdraw, to clarify instead of assume, to stay curious about each other rather than settling into certainty. Choosing one soul every day means remaining open to who they are becoming, not clinging to who they were. I don't expect perfection from you. I don't offer it myself. What I offer is presence, accountability, the willingness to grow without keeping score, the courage to admit when I'm wrong, the patience to let change unfold naturally. Love that lasts isn't rigid, it adapts, it bends without breaking, it strengthens through use. There is something grounding about knowing that commitment doesn't depend on mood, that it isn't threatened by temporary distance or momentary frustration. Choosing you means understanding that love isn't fragile, that it doesn't shatter under pressure. It deepens when handled with care, when protected not by control but by trust. I don't stay because I'm afraid of losing you. I stay because leaving doesn't align with who I am, because walking away from something real would cost more than staying and doing the work. Because this connection reflects back the version of myself I respect, the version that doesn't run at the first sign of difficulty, the version that understands that meaning is built, not found fully formed. Choosing you every day also means choosing honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, even when silence would be easier. It means choosing to be seen rather than appearing strong, to be real rather than being right. That kind of vulnerability isn't reckless, it's intentional. It's offered in a space where it will be held with care. I don't love you for who you might become. I love you for who you are right now, in motion, in process, unfinished, head, and real. And I choose to keep loving you as you change, as we both change, understanding that growth doesn't move in straight lines, that some days are about progress and others are about patience. This choice doesn't exhaust me, it steadies me. It gives my days coherence. It aligns my actions with my values. Loving one soul every day isn't limiting, it's focusing. It's deciding where to invest attention, energy, care. It's saying this matters enough to protect, enough to nurture, enough to choose even when no one is watching. I don't need certainty about everything else because this choice anchors me. It doesn't guarantee outcomes. It doesn't promise ease, but it offers direction. It offers meaning. It offers the quiet strength of knowing that whatever unfolds, I am not drifting. I am participating. I am choosing. I am present. And so I continue to choose you in the smallest ways, in tone, in timing, in patience, in restraint, in loyalty that isn't performative but lived. I choose you when the world feels loud and when it feels still, when things are clear and when they are complicated. Not because I have to, because this choice makes sense, because it reflects who I am becoming, because loving you this way feels less like effort and more like alignment.